Good evening and welcome to the Voice of Rotary. My name is Chris Hughes. Rotary is a volunteer organisation with over 1.2 million members from around the world. Rotary was founded in 1905 and was originally for men only, but women have been part of Rotary for over 20 years now. Rotarians get together in friendship, provide humanitarian service and work for peace. They conduct projects to address challenges such as illiteracy, disease, hunger, poverty, lack of clean water and sanitation, and environmental problems. One of the cornerstones of Rotary has been the firm belief in maintaining high ethical standards in business and personal lives. What I've just read to you is essentially the brief summary of Rotary composed by the current international president, Kalyan Banerjee from India. His term of office finishes in the middle of 2012. My guest this evening is Ron Watts from the Rotary Club of Elizabeth, and amongst other things he'll be talking about aspects of modern communication. Good evening, Ron.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Could you let listeners know a bit about you? Are you a local boy?
No, I'm not. I came originally from Sydney. I came to Adelaide in 1973.
Yeah.
Here in Adelaide we've raised a family of 4 children. We ran a small business for 28 years. I subsequently went off and was employed in regional development and business consultation.
Yeah.
And I finished my working life in a national role, flying around the country every week to encourage one of the 132 offices we had working with small businesses right across the country.
Right. Well, there's enough there, non-Rotarian, to last for a couple of interviews, but we better stick to the Rotary aspect.
Okay.
What stage did you get involved with Rotary? Were you bribed or threatened or volunteered to get into Rotary?
No, it's interesting. I joined Rotary in 1984, the first time. Simply because all of my friends within the Chamber of Commerce and local business owners were in Rotary, and they sort of looked around one day and said, "Oh, you're a young fellow, we need you,"
yeah.
as they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I joined that Rotary Club. That was Manapara. A couple of years later, I pulled out of Manapara after about 18 months. I had about 6 months off, back into business, working hard. And I joined Elizabeth. In fact, Reg Driver is my colleague, is here with me today.
Yeah.
And I were inducted on the same night, as I remember, 1986. 6 or 7?
Somewhere about there.
Sometime. Anyway, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I've been through the mill with Rotary. As a business person, your life is controlled sometimes by other forces, and sometimes I've dropped out of Rotary through business pressure. So I think I've been inducted 5 times, and I've been in 3 clubs. So it's a varied life. But I'm back where I like to be, back in Elizabeth. I was the president of Elizabeth in 1992-93. And I'm starting to stop being a knife and forker and getting back involved in doing some of those things that I like to do.
That's good. Now, you're a useful person to talk to because, as we in Rotary are all aware, clubs change in what they do. Can you remember some of the projects that some of your early clubs were involved with and the way that the clubs have changed over that period of time?
Yes, when I first came to the club, some of the projects, one in particular we used to get heavily involved in was the selling of jeans. To raise funds, which is, as you know, Rotary's focus is to raise money to give it away. And the big thing about Rotary and Rotary internationally is that 100% of all the money that we raise goes, and that's a very important thing for people to understand, because they see so many organisations that scream 20 or 30% off of their administration. We don't do that at all. So every dollar that everyone gives goes exactly where it's going. We had a connection with Levi Jeans through one of their reselling agencies, and we used to buy seconds jeans for very little money, and we'd probably get 1,000 pairs. We'd accumulate them over time, and we used to sell them at massive sales as a joint project with the Chittagong Lions Club. So a Lions Club and a Rotary Club working together. We would go to a community hall one Saturday afternoon and we'd advertise we were going to be there, and people would come and buy jeans at $10 a pair. And quite literally, Chris, they'd walk out the door with armfuls. We'd all be staggered by the amount of jeans people would buy. But we raised a lot of money, which we were then able to turn into both local and international project funds that we put in. And some of the early things we did internationally, we did some work in Indonesia. One of our past presidents has now passed away, the late Dr. Gordon Gregg, was very keen on a project in Indonesia in a blind school, and we raised money to fund the purchase of some equipment for that hospital, and Gordon actually went there and visited that school as that equipment was being installed. We did work in Fiji and in New Guinea, of course. People were going up there years ago to work on projects physically. So there are lots of things we've done like that, lots of things locally with children, particularly fostering young people into leadership opportunities, and we did a big carers camp for a couple of years to try and give people a bit of relief from that pressure and that stress of caring for people. So we've done lots and many and varied things. The problem today, for us as a club, is we're all getting older, and we're not physically capable of doing some of those wonderful things we used to do before, although we still do barbecues. Can't avoid the barbecues.
Indirectly, you've told me a couple of things. First of all, I'm always delighted to hear about novel ways of fundraising. I was talking to a young lady earlier this morning, and pointing out that service clubs do more than raise money. They actually raise money in order to spend it.
That's right. That's right.
And,
no purpose otherwise, is it?
But the other thing is, you remind us all how independent service clubs are. They're not directed from above. They are a group of people who can decide what they want to do and how they spend the money that they raise within sort of guidance limits. So that's fascinating.
It's really quite a good principle. The Rotary system, if you like to call it a system, or the model that it follows, of changing the management of a club every year, keeps it fresh. Keeps it moving, and it doesn't allow any one person to monopolise. But it certainly carries on and allows us to do lots of things, as you say, very independently. But at the same time, we have the opportunity to work with other Rotary clubs and other service clubs.
Again, a very refreshing reminder, and I think that's a bit of a modern trend, that Rotary clubs are prepared to work with other service clubs, and other service clubs work with, there are half a dozen well-known service clubs, and it's really very encouraging, I think, particularly in country areas where they work together. Now, we're coming up to the end of our first section, and you've brought some music with you. I might ask you why you've chosen this piece. Those Are the Days of Our Lives, sung by Queen.
Oh, Queen's fan. How could you not be a Queen's fan?
There we go.
You can talk now.
Okay.
Oh, he started talking.